Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. The Ruckus panel has assembled from throughout the realm: Woody Cozad, Mary O'Halloran, Yael Abou-Hakka, and Gwen Grant. I'm Mike Shannon. Bi-state bylines are brimming with stories about the bi-state governors. In Missouri, the issue is Medicaid, and Jay Nixon's resolve to fight for its expansion. Medicaid expansion is part of Obamacare, but the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that states don't have to participate. Nixon, theoretically a Democrat, is facing determined opposition from the GOP-controlled state legislature. The bulk of the funding for expansion comes, at least initially, from the federal government. So, Gwen, does Governor Nixon have any chance of expanding his support in the legislature and getting expanded Medicaid?
I think it's a pretty long shot that he'll be able to do that. I think that the Republican-dominated legislature has such disdain for Obamacare that it would actually sacrifice what is in the best interest of quality health care for a large number of Missourians to prove the point that they hate Obamacare. And it's unfortunate for the state because the federal government will actually cover the cost of Medicaid expansion for several years, I think up until around 2017 or 2020.
According to what I have, 5%, the states will pay 5% starting in 2017 and 10% by 2020.
Right. So you have all these years of federal investment to ensure that more people have access to health insurance.
Assuming that the law stays the same.
Well, I don't think the law is going to change that drastically here. I mean, Obama was reelected. The Supreme Court did give the states the right to choose to opt out. But I think that if you look at the economic impact of it, it makes darn good sense to provide, to do Medicaid expansion rather than have people showing up getting basic medical care in emergency rooms.
There must be some reason other than hating poor people that Republicans would have for opposing this, because Republicans don't hate poor people and don't want to keep them from getting medical support. So what is it?
Oh, primarily they hate President Obama. But that we had an election, and that should go away. I mean, this is a serious question. That will affect how many thousands? It's
250,000.
200 to 300,000 is what I read.
And it has a serious economic impact, as pointed out by the Kansas City Star's editorial on the subject. Now, you made a little joke here with the governor of Missouri in the beginning of this segment about the pretend. He's not a pretend Democrat. He is very much the moderate Democrat who sees that the money that used to come from the federal government to little hospitals in Missouri, and big ones, to take care of people that didn't have insurance and they walk in the door and get emergency care, that money's going to go away. And those hospitals understand that. And what's going to replace it, or should, is this new federal support for Medicaid with all of its preventive care provisions, which are pretty substantial. So, Jay Nixon, good for you.
John Rizzo, state representative from the Kansas City area Democrat, says if Medicaid is not expanded in Missouri, we're going to see hospitals around the state starting to close, as you suggest.
I definitely want to see what he's going to say here, but I will predict that, you know, one of the things that really needs to happen, I'm a little more optimistic than Gwen and maybe Mary are, in that I think the people who are promoting this are going to have to promote the possible cost savings. And we have had some editorials on that. We have said some information on that. But at this point, it's theoretical. It's certainly what Nixon's talking about. He's talking about the savings that you will actually get long term, even though, yes, it's a costly program, there are some savings long term. I think that's going to need to be proven more than it has so far. But I also think that this whole hospital issue gets into the rural thing. And it will be tough for some of the rural GOP legislators to be telling people in their district, and certainly hospitals and executives in the district, hey, you're gonna have some financial problems here, and we could alleviate that.
Woody, weigh in if you would. Missouri is not the only state that is unlikely to take the Medicaid expansion.
Well, look, Missouri has good reasons. I mean, the people voted overwhelmingly against the mandate. Then, while voting heavily against re-electing President Obama in Missouri. They also voted that the executive branch could not enact some kind of an exchange without going through the legislature, and then they proceeded to elect an overwhelmingly veto-proof Republican legislature. Somewhere in there, there's a message, I think, if you dig real hard, and it is that Missourians, not just conservative Republicans, are not crazy about this. A few years ago, at that time, Republican State Senator Chris Koster, now the Democratic Attorney General, appeared in front of the State Legislative Committee of the Greater Kansas City Chamber and held up a little chart to show them that in 12 years, if they didn't cut Medicaid drastically, it was going to be the entire budget of Missouri. That wasn't supposed to happen, except Warren Hearns predicted it when Medicaid was enacted. He said this will bankrupt the states. We're going right back in the same box. Tell me the feds are going to pay for it, so it's all free money. And we've been down that road before.
So the concern is kind of, as I said,
$1 of state revenue for about $19 to $20 of federal revenue.
But you can still go broke.
Well, look,
We were going broke on it before.
There's no benefit to be gained. You're going to have thousands of people with health care.
There's no benefit to be gained from going bankrupt, and we went to the verge of it before.
You're still going to have to
They
pay.
have every reason for not believing, as Yale says, the projections about what it will cost.
What happens is those people who have health insurance carry that burden. There's that hidden tax for those who are insured to carry the burden of the uninsured.
So we resolved that one.
Very quickly. You think it was Dave Helling who wrote that, that one of the reasons Nixon is less reluctant to come out in support of this is because there is the possibility that somebody somewhere is eyeing in 2016 a Hillary Clinton, Nixon VP race.
Well,
that's a free ride for
Who wrote that?
No, I don't know about that.
Nixon gets to be seen fighting for the cause, of his party,
Mike?
and yet he doesn't make anybody too mad because it's probably not going to happen at the end of the day.
Missouri is always a place people look for vice presidents. We've had a few. And it will and I predict that Claire McCaskill and Mr. Nixon, Governor Nixon, will be looked at.
How great would that be, a second Vice President Nixon?
Oh, well, gee.
We already had one.
And that went really well.
In Kansas, Governor Brownback is almost always making news and almost always about taxes. The conservative governor is now saying that legislators should consider finding dollars to pay for significant tax cuts he supported and signed into law earlier this year. The revenue reduction to the state is estimated at around $700 million. Brownback says one way to make up the money might be through pay-fors. So, Mary, what is a pay-for? Is that another name for a tax?
Nobody else can figure it out, but I'm supposed to figure it out on Ruckus. Thanks for the confidence you have in me, Mike. Well, Governor Brownback has done something so extraordinarily radical by lying to the members of the legislature. He got, in trickery, he got a massive tax cut through that will end up, according to his own people, costing running the state into a $2.5 billion deficit over 6 years. And so now he's out peddling around saying, oh, well, we need to pay for all these tax breaks for the Koch brothers, who will pocket millions every year, because it goes there. Many of their little subsidiaries are the kinds of corporations that will benefit most, and all the farmers and ranchers will. So how do you pay for all of this? Well, he suggests continuing the sales tax that we had a 1 cent sales tax put on in Kansas by Parkinson and then carried through by Brownback to pay for the downturn in the economy, the recession, so that schools and social services wouldn't be hurt too badly. Well, he said that it was going to end in July, but he said, oh, no, let's don't end in July. Let's carry it through. And that's going to be very
The pay-fors would be the elimination of certain so-called loopholes in the tax code.
Well, he wants to eliminate the mortgage credit.
And possibly contributions to charity. Some of the same things are being talked about at the federal level.
Here's the really amazing thing, and I can't believe he'll get away with it, but I have every reason to believe he will, is that he actually has said through his budget guy the other day that we have to continue the sales tax and do a few other things like take people's mortgage interest credit away from them, because we've got to pay for the tax breaks for the upper crust.
Now, none of this is resolved, if I understand correctly.
Right.
These are just suggestions, thoughts, looking at a way to make the loss in revenue less severe than it will be. But I suspect that that's a purposeful thing on the part of Brownback, who says with less money we have to restructure and we'll learn to live within that structure.
You know, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you think this won't work, you're thinking Kansas is going to be in a whole hell of a lot of trouble in the next 2 or 3 years. Now, if Brownback and Laffer are right for maybe the first time, and they actually have a lot more people go over there, you know, go from Missouri to Kansas and open shop, a lot more jobs are attracted there, that income gap that you talked about, Mary, goes away or at least is reduced. I mean, theoretically, it could happen. Now, practically is the big question, and that's why I come back to on the sales tax issue. Frankly, I think Brownback's right. I think he's right to say we need money, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell all you Republicans that I'm gonna probably come to you for keeping this tax. And a lot of the Republicans already pushed back, going, "Oh well, no, it's a tax increase."
And talking about the sales tax, it is scheduled to drop from 6.3% to 5.7% in July.
Yeah,
and what he's saying is leave it at 6.3% for a while.
He's wrong. We tax food in Kansas. He has never suggested, the governor, that we lighten the load on the people who work for a living. We tax food at its highest possible.
Yeah, and did I say something that indicates the?
I want to get to something else here.
Sales tax,
the much maligned CanCare program that the governor outlined, transferring state Medicaid to privately operated companies, managed care. Woody, that's now been approved by the Obama administration and will take place in Kansas at the first of the year.
Well, sounds like a centrist idea to me. Look, anybody who doesn't want to do some experimenting in this area, and this is one experiment, and if you want to try this, well, why is this a crime? You know, I keep coming back to this. The real gut, visceral root of the objection to everything Brownback is doing is we just don't want to rock the boat. This is Kansas. Don't rock the boat. No, it is. I'm sorry. They don't rock the boat over there.
No, I'd agree.
Their past 5 governors, they don't do it.
Yeah,
and he stepped in and said, I'm going to rock this boat. And it shakes those people up over there. They're not used to it.
He subscribes to this idea, and I think it's one that is conservative and Republican, but maybe Democratic and liberal as well. States are the laboratories of democracy. You try things there, see what works. Successful things are then adopted.
Well, the state is not growing. The state is losing population jobs. You got to do something.
All right. Calling on a Kansas City jazz image, Mayor Sly James analogized the new American City Conference to a jam session where people improvise and improve. The meeting at the Performing Arts Center brought mayors and others from around the nation to share thoughts about the future of cities and city governments. One key takeaway from the conference, according to a Kansas City Star editorial, is this: Kansas City is competing with cities around the nation and world to attract sharp minds and investment dollars. I thought that always had been the case. The Star also outlined some high priority areas for Kansas City to consider. What are some of them, Yale?
Well, to sum it up, it's to make Kansas City cool. Again. I mean, some of the arts programs that we have really emphasize that. Emphasize the ability to have the Google Fiber. I mean, that is really a quiver in our little arrow that we can send out there. I think one of the things that I came away from, especially
you went to
I went to most of it. Although the mayor blasted me for walking out in a 10-minute session, I'll tell you the beauty of Twitter. But what I came away from is it was kind of a cocoon there. I mean, you had all these national experts talking about city stuff, and they're talking about walkability and bikes and transit, and and they appeal to the millennials. All of that is important. But as I wrote in a column this morning, I mean, a lot of people don't live that way. I mean, they live in the suburbs, and they live where we need the $600 million Johnson County Gateway to expand roads so more people won't have 5-minute diversions from their daily traffic. But the thing I took away from the conference is that there really are a lot of good people thinking about these kind of things now that, yeah, density is better. Okay, so if we do know that, that means more living structures downtown. That means trying to bring UMKC's arts thing downtown makes good sense. It means a lot of the investments that actually have been made downtown and in the urban core, from the plaza down to the river, have kind of gotten us to where Kansas City is maybe ready to make that next step, where the streetcar, comes in, that kind of thing. So I think we've got a lot of pieces in play. The next step is taking advantage of
Well,
them.
looking at some of the areas that were discussed,
Yeah.
I mean, they're all fine, but they're not new, are they? I mean, bicycle-friendly downtowns and neighborhoods, pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods, that's not new.
Well, no, actually,
subsidizing reconstruction of neglected neighborhoods,
It's
that's not
new to this extent that things we used to have, which were more transit-friendly neighborhoods, all that kind of stuff, we've kind of gotten away from. Fantastic statistic about how much downtown is given over, for example, to parking garage. I mean, it's more than 50% of downtown where it used to be.
So
10
this is back to the future.
It's, in a way it is, but I'd also say that one of the things that we really have to focus on is infrastructure. You mentioned that. Now that is old retrograde type of stuff. But people don't want to live where, yeah, there are unsafe schools and unsafe streets. Get that. We know that's a priority. They also don't want to live where their water mains break and all that kind of stuff.
Probably not difficult to predict. The vote was favorable for the 2-mile starter streetcar line downtown,
Yes.
River Market to Union Station. Mary, are you pleased with the
trickiest
result?
little vote they've had in Kansas City, Missouri for a long time. What a success. And now there will be, apparently, since all the little, you call them the millennial people, were so happy about this, and good for you. Everybody that, I mean, I like that kind of activism. I hated the way it came about, but it's going to happen. And Kite Singleton and everybody, way to go. You know, I wouldn't trade places. I read all the articles you wrote and the ones you were there to hear, or the people you were there to hear about. I wouldn't trade places with any of those people from other places in terms of where Kansas City is right now, with the Kauffman Center, with Google Fast Startup, with the changes we've made. This city is alive and people are moving downtown.
We hear that this streetcar starter system is going to cause economic development. And Woody, how soon do you think we'll see that?
I don't, look, I believe that. I think when you build one of these things, there's a natural reason to then take some abandoned building on the route.
That's one of the key reasons to have it.
As a matter of fact, in cities with more advanced thinking than ours, the city takes a piece of that growth. And you know, as a partnership interest, okay, we suddenly raise the value of your property, we're going to get a piece of that because we invested in this. And they do that, I know, in Hong Kong, for example. So I think this is a great idea. I think it'll bring in economic development. It's okay. I wish they'd had a real election for it. I would like to say one thing about Back to the Future. In 1965, William F. Buckley ran for mayor of New York. He proposed bikeways, for which he was blasted by Abe Beame, John Lindsay, and the New York Times as some kind of a nutcase. This is not conservative or liberal or anything to think about using bicycles to get around, and it's an idea that's been around for a while, and it didn't start with the people who are now touting it.
All right, have to move on. Some are saying his decision is demented. Who in his right mind and not facing any sort of scandal that we know of would voluntarily resign from the U.S. Senate? Well, South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint is certainly in his right mind, maybe even his far right mind, and he's resigning from the Senate. Now he's heading the prestigious conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, where DeMint says he will have greater influence than in the U.S. Senate.
Well, after this last election, it's apparent that we need to do more as conservatives to convince Americans that our ideas and our policies are going to make their lives better. The Heritage Foundation is the premier think tank, research organization, the premier idea group for the conservative movement.
One analyst says this move will make Jim DeMint the CEO of conservatism. Woody, let me ask you, are we seeing now a merger of the Tea Party and the think tank?
Well, perhaps. I think there's something to that because DeMint's very much a populist conservative from the populist wing of the party and of the movement. I don't think it's ludicrous to leave the Senate to go do something like this and to say you're doing it in terms of influence. You believe that ideas matter over the long haul, that they are what really transforms society, and going and working in the realm of ideas rather than log rolling over a road or a dam in your district and giving away your vote on some issue of philosophy to get that might actually be less influential. Joanne Emerson's not going to run again, you know, and there are a bunch of people down there in southeast Missouri talking about running, and my first question to all of them is, you really want to be a member of Congress? And seriously, ask yourself if you want to do that. How important are you? How much difference do you really think you're going to make?
And one point, and I'm sure it's not the only point that caused DeMint to look seriously at this new job, but the salary is estimated to be in the neighborhood of $1 million a year.
That'll have a real impact on a senator.
But quickly, Mary, just quickly now, describe what a think tank is in case people aren't familiar with that
concept. Well, it depends upon who's funding it.
Well, what does a think tank do? Generates ideas?
Get a lot of money together, hire smart people to put out reports that back up your political philosophy, so you can train politicians to go out and campaign on those ideas. Let me just make a comment about Jim DeMint. I mean, the idea that his leaving will have much impact on anything is really a stretch. I mean, come on. These are the defeated people. The people who are going to have impact are, if we can find some Republican moderates, and the new Democrats. And all the women that were elected to the United States Senate, including our very own way to go, Claire McCaskill. This is the guy who supported Todd Akin. I mean, these people were defeated. Dick Armey, the head of FreedomWorks, just bailed out of FreedomWorks. Of course, he had a $8 million pay.
Okay, before we get out of time here,
leaving for good reason.
I want to get off to something else here. Michigan is now the 24th state in our union to have a right-to-work law. You don't have to join a union, or if you're in it, you don't have to pay dues to work in a business. What does that tell us about the future of the labor movement, Gwen?
Well, I think it was a sad day for the labor movement, and I'm hoping that the labor movement will be much more aggressive in educating people about the impact, the important impact that the labor movement has on building the middle class. And this so-called right-to-work law is totally ridiculous to say, you know, to coin it as the right to work, as if having a bargaining unit to protect your rights to work would somehow impede your ability.
You can still have the bargaining unit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can still have the bargaining unit, and I mean, most people have the option to join anyway. So you know,
any movement toward this, and Kansas is already right-to-work state. Anything in Missouri?
No, I mean, we had a short story in the Star saying it wasn't something they wanted to tackle. And now, I mean, and the conservatives in the General Assembly. I kind of doubt. I think they might change. I mean, remember, Michigan wasn't going to tackle.
If I remember correctly,
if
I remember correctly, this was on the ballot one time, or at least one time before in Missouri, wasn't it?
1978.
Gee, times might have changed since then.
They might have changed just a little.
Yeah.
They were.
The right to work for less is what
it is time now for Roast and Toast, where each Ruckhead has the soapbox for 30 seconds. We begin tonight with Woody.
And I would like to toast the legislature of Michigan for passing that right-to-work law. Right-to-work states originally were mostly concentrated in the South, and historically were poorer states. And so the average income was, in fact, lower in right-to-work states. But guess what? That has changed, because those are the very states that have been growing the most in this country. One of the contributing factors to that, I believe, one of the attractions to business, is having a right-to-work law. If for no other reason than it says, look, the power of organized labor in politics in this state is limited, and that's an attraction to business. Missouri should take a look at a right-to-work law.
Well, this is a blast from the past toast for former Mayor Kay Barnes. I'm working on a couple of pieces that should appear hopefully Friday and Saturday about downtown, how far it's come and what it needs to do. You look at how far it's come, and Kay Barnes' fingerprints all over most of the concrete things that were done to improve downtown. She was an amazing figure in downtown's renovation.
Well, because we're so close to the holidays here today, I was looking forward to toasting all the senators from Missouri and Kansas who supported the United Nations resolution or treaty on people with disabilities. A magnificent opportunity for the United States to sign the treaty with the rest of the world, 124 other nations, to promote all across the world the kind of laws and helpful changes in society so that the people with disabilities are full members of our society. Guess who voted no? Bob Dole being one of the people that pushed this through the Senate 20 years ago. George H.W. Bush, Ted Kennedy, Eunice Kennedy, all kinds of people. Guess who voted no? Jerry Moran, Pat Roberts. with Bob Dole and Elizabeth Dole right there looking at them on the floor of the U.S. Senate. A shameful, really disgraceful moment in the history of the state.
Well, during this holiday season, I'd like to toast the African American organizations that have come together to help make a bright Christmas for many disadvantaged children in Kansas City's urban core. The lead organization, Rubies, has brought together a number of organizations to purchase gifts and hats and gloves for needy children to be presented on this coming Saturday at the Southeast Neighborhood and Community Center. So here's a toast to Rubies, 100 Black Men, Awesome Ambitions, and the Greater Kansas City chapter of Links for a job well done during the holiday season.
If you're interested in knowing more about the New American City meeting that Yale talked about, that's being featured on the local show coming up right after Ruckus. And finally, 2 farewells to 2 favorites of mine. Jazz great Dave Brubeck of Take 5 fame died recently, 1 day short of his 92nd birthday. His contributions to jazz would take 5 hours or more to recount. Also, goodbye to our cat, Miss Piggy, approximately 15 years of age. Belying her name, Miss Piggy was petite, sweet, and smart. Smart enough indeed to pick devoted human companions. And that's Ruckus for this week. Be sure to join Nick Haynes for Kansas City Week in Review Friday evening at 7:30. And now on behalf of the Ruckettes and the Ruckus crew, I'm Mike Shannon. Thanks very much for watching, and good night.